Welcome to this week's meeting of the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. The task of our club and the direction of our club is in regards to entrepreneurship, innovation, and education. And we use technology as a means to further the goal of Rotary International, which is service above self. We have a special program for you today. We have one of our club members, Suzanne Van Stralen, and her business partner, Martin Hall, who is going to give us a program on their joint venture application of an app called Thriving. And please take it away, Suzanne.
Thank you very much, Roger. It's great to be here. And just very grateful that Martin can be here with me. We've worked together and designed this for several years, and I just am so happy that we've done research together. He's my business partner, and so here we go, Martin. This is exciting. We're going to walk you all through our mobile app, and so we'll be trading off between the two of us, helping each other out if one of us forgets to say something. So it's a true partnership. And before we actually begin and move into the mobile app, I want to give you just a little bit of background. Some of you may remember that about a year ago, I presented some IP through I guess it was a Spotlight. Thank you. Spotlight on membership. And that was a vision of our intention to use our IP in some programs for youth and adults. And that was a thrill to be able to present that. And since then, over the last year, we've been able to streamline our content and also move that into several applications for mobile apps. And today, what we're going to share with you is a mobile app that's in its beta development right now. And so right now we're receiving a lot of feedback, and we hope we get feedback from many of you. And as a matter of fact, Roger is going to put up a URL, and if you want to go through this entire app on your own, he's going to put this below our recording, I understand, that then you can access this and go through it totally on your own and provide us with feedback. So that's up to you. So at this time, this mobile app has been designed for at possibility youth who are about 14 through 18 years of age, and they've had some issues in school or with the law. And we're just very thrilled that the administration of a Youth and Family Services Department plus some law enforcement are going to administer this program in hopes of helping these youth reimagine their lives and ignite themselves for thriving in the future.
Yeah, one thing I would add is they one of their big focus is to get graduation. Their experience is that if they graduate, they tend to have a better view of their environment and are less likely to get back into the system, if you will. And so that was a big reason why they called us in, was to help them help the kids reimagine where they are.
Thank you, Martin. So we pay a lot of attention to personal leadership within our program and really do try to help the youth reimagine their futures. And something that I've heard Rushton speak about many times is the need to emphasize meaning and purpose in lives. And so I hope that after experiencing this app, you'll see that this is one approach towards helping people develop focus and meaning in their lives. So here we go, Martin. Let's let her roll. Thank you all.
Yeah, I think one of the things that would be that I'd kind of like to focus on just briefly before we start the demonstration is that basically this is built on a foundational framework, and it's developmental. So the idea is a person can enter, based on their values, they can enter anywhere into the framework that works for them. And let's see, a key part of this is clarifying your values, and I'll show that in the demonstration. And maybe what I should do is go into the demonstration at this point, or begin the demonstration, and then I can speak about some of these things as we go. Okay, let me move you over here. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. As you can see, okay, we've gone into the application. We're not going to play the videos, but the videos are meant that if a student or participant is unable, while we feel that mentors should be involved, oftentimes the participant may not be able to be available for that experience. So these videos are about giving extra instructions about what's going on. So I'm going to go to our first major screen. And what we've got here, beliefs are basically clusters of values. And so what we've done is we have a framework of values, or these beliefs, that's based on about 50 years of research. I've been doing a lot of work in this. My father did a lot in this area. So the framework is very similar to a lot of developmental frameworks that you may have experienced. In any event, a participant would come in and they need to choose amongst these beliefs. Now, these are a subset of 52 beliefs that are basically being used to, we're using these values to focus on the issues that the youth are having.
And Martin, I would, can you go back up just so you know, we've tried to spend a lot of time being clear with the instructions. I don't know if you want to zoom into those, but that the instructions are available here for the participant, all right, and then also through our videos. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. And so in this first exercise, what the participants are asked to do is to select two values or beliefs from each of the 5 columns that have the most meaning to them right now in their lives. And so we did this prior to this session, and you'll see that in the initiating column, we have selected self-worth and support, and in the structural column, we've selected wonderment and belonging, so on down the other 3 columns. We do give time for the participants to get familiar with these definitions, because values and beliefs are expressed through language and behavior. So the language that is included in these is very important. So now they've selected their 2 highlighted beliefs in each of these developmental columns.
Yep. Let's see. So we're going to go to the next one. So they've spent some time, hopefully, and picked the values that they feel are most important to them.
And up pops, so of course at the top, can you zoom that, are some instructions which are also available through the audio. So the instructions read, look at the emblem, and the emblem is down the page a ways. What stands out for you and why? And then we prompt them to review the definitions of their beliefs once again. How do these play a role in your life? So we're trying to have them look at themselves positively in their life today. And then the next part of this exercise, this takes time, and these students that are doing this test right now do have a mentor and an administrator who is working with them, supporting them as they go through this. So then they begin to write their story or your story today, and to select 6 or more words that are found in their personal emblem and include them in their my story today. Now, if you take a look at this emblem, you're going to see that the beliefs are in larger font, and that these are color coded according to where they appear in our framework. So we have beliefs, and we also have some key words to help people understand the belief in addition to the definition, and to be able to write a story about it. So we just put an example story. This isn't in language that a young student would write, but I'm going to just read to you a story that I think Martin wrote as an example. I'm someone that likes to feel supported. I feel it's important to care for others. Relationships are important to me. So they're using the beliefs. I need to respect others, and using my imagination is important. I believe in like dignity of myself is important, and I find that I am awed by the mysteries of life. Of course, this language usually is more advanced than, say, a 14-year-old would be writing. I feel the best way to express this is through my art. My art is how I show my creative side. I also find that it is important to play and not work all the time. So we simply shared an example with you because the point of this exercise is to allow the participant to select for themselves their own values and key words, and then hopefully to write a baseline story that are the positive elements about how they show up in their lives today. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, and so for the remainder of this, we're basically going to jump through it because, we've used about 8 minutes now, and so we've only got about 4, 5, 6 more minutes. So we're going to jump through it a little bit as we go here. So they've written a story. Now, in the way that this would be done, say, in the diversion program that we were working, is the participant wouldn't be able to go to the next step until they've written a story that their mentor or coach has okayed. So essentially, we have little gates that require them to do it. So they can't just mail this in, if you will.
And the mentor or coach can see the work that's being done by the participants.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to go to the next stage. This one is basically a quick one that they would do, which is to reflect on the story that they did and then talk about their strengths.
We're going to kind of encapsulate some of these. This one is a guided visualization exercise, and it's here because we've built in multiple ways of knowing, not just rational linear knowing, but this uses the imagination. And the purpose of this one is to take them through an exercise and to point out the practical application that star athletes, that special forces personnel, utilize mindfulness and guided visualization to improve their performance. And we're using this as a way to help them move from today to the future, to begin to visualize their future.
Okay. And keeping in with that theme, we are also having them do a series of images. So they go out on the internet, can capture images on the internet, and then place them here. Now, in the same way that when they went through the guided visualization and it was trying to set them up to think about the future, the idea here is is that what we're doing is creating. They would put images that help them think about where they want to go.
Okay, so these are images about them in their successful future.
Yes.
And they're their chosen images.
That's
Thank
correct.
you.
That's
okay.
Correct. Now, in the previous, earlier on, we had them do their what we call the now story. At this point now, went the wrong way. We're having them. There's some changes that we're in the middle of doing. So forgive us. The black is a little hard to read. However, what the way in which they did the original story, they're now trying to do the same story, but thinking about the future. If I was to just look at what somebody might have written, they would use these same values, beliefs, and some of the keywords and write a story. In this case, it might be, I'm happy that my personal relationships are much stronger. They are allowing me to focus on making my art to be a central part of my life. I'm a painter who does large format canvases. What I'm most happy with is that I'm successful enough to focus in this area.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that the beliefs and keywords that show up in this, say, superhero emblem box are from the last 3 columns of that intellectual property that we showed you at the very beginning, and their beliefs that they selected. And they're a little bit higher development beliefs than the ones for the first story.
Yeah, the first 3 are more foundational, and the last 3 are basically more future-oriented. Now, there was only 5, so the middle column is used in both directions, or sorry, in both sections.
Okay, let's go on.
Okay, so now
I think maybe we just need to let them know that we have a thriving plan in the different parts.
Okay.
How much time do we have?
Let's see.
How much time do we have, Roger? Oh, that's all right.
Okay, so now that they've looked at their future, what we want them to do is to start creating a plan. And in this case, they would write a couple of sentences that are very specific to how they're going to enact their future. And so what they would do here is basically write these sentences and then make specific goals related to that. So one might be, in this case, using this artistic bent, might be, that the person is excited to be accepted to be a chalk artist. Okay, so if you want to be a chalk artist, how are you going to get there? So what we want them to do is identify 2 goals. And then they would write the goals and check them out with their mentor or coach. You want to talk about this, or want me to do it?
Well, related to the vision and the goals, there are specific skills that are needed, and so we're wanting to slow the participants down. And also in our IP, the beliefs. If a participant pressed on a little box that said skills, related skills show up that can inform what they would write for skills. So this is a piece where, if you want to be whatever you want to be, you spend some time thinking about, well, what skills do I need? And so we ask them to write 3 skills, and then how will you get these skills? So I'm moving through this quickly, but this is an important piece of the program.
Right. So you've got the school, you got the skills that you think you need, and then you have to write down how you'll get these skills.
Also, they're working with a mentor. They're talking to their mentor about all of this and getting feedback. And so, it's not just like they're doing this in a vacuum. And the next piece is actions.
Yeah, actions. So now, presumably, they've looked at their goals. They've looked at possible skills that they need. Now they need to create the actions and when they're going to do it. So in this case, you might say, okay, I want to find out how to be a chalk artist. So I'm going to talk to my teacher about how other chalk artists did this the previous year. So what we might do is that in order to do that, you might say, okay, I need to make an appointment with my art teacher. And then you give a specific date on when you'll have this finished. I will show the art teacher some examples. What day you're going to do that? And then you would make you'd make a series of short-term steps that you wanted to do to make this specific. The idea here is that they want to create a plan, have them finish the plan, work with a mentor, and that mentor is now going to take them for a few months until they are able to help them graduate.
And so there is accountability in this program. Okay.
And then
now we're at the last page, which we're going to be making a certificate available. And we're, very excited about the involvement of not only the people in law enforcement and youth and family services, but some volunteers in the community to come and support these young people to develop this action plan, which they can print out through the app. They can get it electronically. That can be used as a portfolio and also as a life skill, so that they're going to know how to do this for themselves in the future to continue to make these plans.
Mm-hmm. And as we bring this to a close, well, one of the things that we wanted to make sure, or not make sure, this is an early beta, and we would love any feedback that you might give us. We're giving a URL to Roger, and he's going to show that to you later. We will use that. You can then go in yourself and take this and experience it for yourself.
Because you really haven't had the full experience. We've been dashing through it. So thank you very much. And thank you very much, Roger. We're looking forward to the questions from the folks here.
Thank you for just an excellent presentation. Would you please hit your share button again, please? Terrific. I would invite our two guests on the presentation to ask any questions. Sandra, do you have any questions of Suzanne and Martin?
I do. What is like the time that you would like to, from when they start until when they get their certificate? I mean, have you thought about like how long of it? Is it like 1 month, 2 months? I know it's going to be individualized, but like what would your goal be?
I'll speak to that. Well, it obviously, because it's an application like this, it can be made the way that you would like. In this particular case, where we're speaking about the city of Sonoma, what they want to do is have this completed over a 2-month period. So the idea is they're doing some work to create the plan. They then want to work with that participant using this to a certain degree, but now trying to figure out how they're going to get them graduated.
How they're going to complete the plan. So they want to be able to monitor that and help the student. Their program is a 6-month program. So they're trying to allow enough time to get the participant through, see where they are, and then to enact the change. That's one example.
Okay, thanks. That makes sense. Yeah.
The one thing that I'd add to that is a couple of the sections probably are going to take longer than others and should be given appropriate amount of time. But 2 months is probably about what we think most people would use.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Nice to see you both. Thank you very much for that. I'm UK based. I'm just finished about 45 years in the military with the Royal Air Force. The last 15 I've been working with youth in what we call the Air Training Corps, which is the teenage sort of cadets for the Air Force from 12 to 20 years old. A lot of what we do is teaching youngsters leadership. And we're taking youngsters of all sorts of backgrounds, all sorts of abilities, and trying to make them decent citizens, but also give them leadership skills. And quite a lot of what you were saying there, I think, could be used in that area, because a lot of what you're doing on there is development, personal development. But to be a leader, you really need to be able to have the confidence to put that personal development through. Have you looked at sort of areas where that could be used outside the ones that you've suggested at the beginning? Because I think this would be ideal for
Yeah, absolutely. Like one of the things that I touched on at the beginning was that we had 52 of these values clusters. We come out of a leadership development, personal leadership development background.
Where this was used for students in a master's in leadership was the core.
So our hope would be over time that the students could start to understand what those items that are driving them, and then understand the skills that they need to do that. So it's very much comes from that background. The possibilities of this are very big. Suzanne and I have a great desire in helping kids because we think they're going to be the leaders in the next couple of generations. And so this is an example of us trying to do that.
And so your point about leadership, I'm just holding up a leadership map, our pathway that we've developed. And so it is developmental, and a person gains the skills and capacities in each of these steps so that when hopefully we're getting people into the collaborative step here is where we're trying to get, but we're trying to engage folks so that they have the skills to interact with people who are in many different stages of development.
Like a lot
we've got some sort of guidance for mentors, because one of the problems I found bring adult staff in to mentor youngsters, they've got the skills themselves, but they don't necessarily have the skills to mentor somebody through something like this.
Yeah.
So is there going to be some program with mentoring tuition, if you like?
There's two possibilities there. One is we created a mentor/facilitators guide.
Perfect, yeah.
And the idea is we basically say, what's the intention of this section? And here's what you might do to help the participant get through it, address it. So yes, we're very much thinking in those terms.
That's great, wonderful.
I have a couple areas of questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is relating to how you got to this point. How many hours would you say that between both of you have dedicated to putting together the app at this point of time?
Lifetimes, Roger.
As far as the app, we probably started the application with a colleague of ours who is an absolute saint about 3 years ago. So, well, maybe we step back for one thing. We started off with this program by using cards. The idea was to work with kids and use a kind of the visceral idea of cards. But that doesn't scale very well. And so the programmer, who also had gone through the leadership program that we used to teach in, said, "Hey, I'll help you put that on the web in a mobile app." So I would say if you're talking in hours,
approximately.
Yeah, I would say hundreds. I mean, it's
unbelievable.
I would say we've done 2 or 3. We get together at least 2 hours every 2 to 3 days, and we've been doing that for the last 5 years. And then the app came in about 3 years ago. So I would have to say, God.
It's a labor of love, you know?
Of course. Yes.
We're probably looking at, 500, 700 hours of time a year.
Okay. That gives us a very good indication of your dedication. The second area of questions that I have for you, and there are 3 things generally that keep people in poverty.
Mhm.
And the first one is the failure to get a grade 12 education.
Right?
The second one is to have children before you're married.
Hmm.
I'm not sure I follow.
Oh,
That's a problem?
That keeps them in poverty.
Oh, keeps them in poverty. Got it.
yeah, that keeps you in poverty. And the third thing that keeps you in poverty is going through a divorce.
Ah,
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you can go through those three things, for instance, and go beyond those three things, the chances of you staying in poverty are just about nil.
Mhm. So,
And have you built into uh, the meat of the program those three thoughts in
yes.
terms of how you get, because we're all born poor. And there's things in our society that come along in society that we do that keep us poor.
Got it. Okay, I'll speak to it a little bit. My father was an Episcopal priest before he passed away, and when I got into my 20s and so on, I went through and did this and actually did my own PhD in this area. However, one of the things that got my father to get into this, he was in the mission field, or my whole family was in the mission field in Costa Rica.
Okay.
And one of the things they found was that women, based on how men were treating them, women had a very low self-esteem. They did not see themselves as important. And so sex was one way of experiencing, that it was a release. And so you had a lot of kids, out of wedlock, etc. One of the things that my father did was help those women and other people, but those women, to understand that they had worth beyond how they related to someone else. And the idea was, they moved them essentially, well, it's a much more complicated framework, but basically
they
take
can't
them,
see it.
to take them out of this initiating, which is basically a foundational framework, and start moving them up, well, up the developmental framework as a way of giving them more meaning. So lowering the chance, it's never going to be totally go out, but lowering the chance that they were going to have a lot of children out of wedlock. And you have to understand this was done in a 95% Catholic country, at least at the time. The second one you said was about, well, that was the children out of wedlock. What was the first one? What was the first question?
The first thing was in regards to the failure to get a grade 12 education.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I think you might look at, that's exactly what this particular program is focused on. The program that we're working with, that is the goal. Get them
to get a degree. Get these
High
at possibility
school.
high school kids to get a high school degree. And so they're going to be working with them for 6 months on that.
Right. Some time ago, what I did was I researched back in Canada's history, and I know that the U.S. has a similar type of history. When I graduated from grade 12 in 1965, at that point in time, there in Canada, there was 3,000 live births of mothers who are teenage mothers.
Mhm.
By 1975, that figure had gone up to 60,000.
That's amazing.
Wow.
And within that, you had the sexual revolution. And what you also had was the welfare state that came along and to support this type of behavior. And now what's happened in Canada, although the statistics have still gone up, they've been divided now between those stillbirths of teenage mothers and also abortion. And you add those two totals and it goes beyond, it keeps growing each year. And I've always thought that if you solve the teenage pregnancy or problem, you would solve the basic problem in the United States and Canada of poverty.
Yeah, well, it's about giving people meaning.
Yeah.
If you can create an environment where they can not work, but where they can gain meaning that comes from them and not necessarily from the external, there is definitely a tendency for more strength, which hopefully that goes to other, makes it work as far as they see what's important to them, whether it's a child or that maybe a child gets in the way of them getting a high school degree or the next level, like a community college degree. But it's really about creating an environment where they can understand and give their own meaning.
And I think that meaning is, at least in working with Martin's father, has to do with the relationship to the vision. Some of them can't see their own vision. And so a lot of what we're trying to do is rely upon beliefs and values to support them to be able to see a vision for themselves that can pull them towards their future. So that's a lot of the power of what's happening here, I believe.
Yeah, this framework is about pulling people to the future, not pushing them toward the future.
Right.
I was saying before about the military cadets, that's probably the thing I've noticed most of all, is the fact that the ones who have the biggest problems are usually the ones who don't actually have a vision for themselves. So
Right.
When they do actually get something into their heads to aim towards, a lot of the other problems disappear almost instantly because they're not problems anymore, they're just sidelines.
Yeah. Yes, I totally agree with you.
At this point in time, for the viewers and anybody who has been a guest and has watched our program today, I would direct you to two things. Number one is the comment section, which is at the bottom of the meeting. And please feel free to leave a comment, and so that our speakers can get some degree of feedback. And the other thing I would have you do is, and that is to fill out the attendance section. And if you are a guest from another Rotary Club, if you provide the correct email address, we will provide to you makeup so that you can take it to your club secretary. So at this point in time, I would like to take the program back to Suzanne and Martin for them to give us their last words of wisdom. Go ahead.
Thank you, Roger, and thank you all. My last words of wisdom come out of some lived experience, having facilitated this type of program with over 400 people, and actually experiencing it for myself and for others, that I believe it's transformative. And so that's why we spend the time that we do. There's great hope for the world by helping people understand and work with their values and personal leadership. Martin, you want to say something?
Well, basically, I agree with her.
Okay, then. Thank you very much for a very interesting program, and I look forward to the comments of the members who view the presentation. Thank you very much.
And please fill out the